Please suck out the venom, it's really swollen," she begged. The cowboy did, and froze in shock. Wade Garrison had been married to his mail-order bride for exactly 11 days, but he'd never touched her, never even shaken her hand for longer than propriety demanded. Now 3 miles from his Wyoming ranch, with a thunderstorm rolling in and a timber rattler disappearing into the rocks, his 6'2" wife Clara lay gasping in the tall grass, her riding skirt torn, her thigh already swelling to twice its size. "Please," she begged, her face white as death, her hand clutching his shirt with desperate strength. "Please suck out the venom. It's really swollen. I can feel it spreading. Wade, I don't want to die." The bite was high on her inner thigh, an intimate place no husband should see on a wife he barely knew. But when Wade cut away the fabric with his knife and saw the wound, he froze. Not because of the snakebite, not because of where it was, but because of what else he saw on her other thigh, scars that spelled out a single hateful word: freak, burn marks circling below it like brands on cattle. This giant mail-order bride, who moved through his house like a ghost, trying not to take up space. What had someone done to her? And why was she begging a stranger husband to put his mouth on her poisoned flesh, when she clearly carried wounds far deeper than any rattlesnake could inflict? Wade's hands trembled. In 34 years of life, through war and death and loss, his hands had never shaken. But they shook now. The scars weren't old, maybe 2 years, maybe less. Someone had held this woman down and carved hatred into her skin with a blade. Someone had burned her with something hot and deliberate. Cigars, maybe. The circular marks were too perfect to be accidents. "Wade." Clara's voice cracked. Her eyes were losing focus. "Wade, please. I know what you see. I know I'm hideous, but please don't let me die. You can send me back after. You can annul the marriage. Just please." Something inside him shattered like glass. "Who did this to you?" The words came out like gravel, low and dangerous. "Wade, the venom. Who did this?" He looked up at her face, forcing himself to meet her eyes instead of staring at the horror carved into her flesh. "Clara, who hurt you?" Thunder rolled across the darkening sky. The first fat raindrops began to fall. Clara's leg was swelling worse now, the red streaks climbing higher toward her hip. She had minutes. Maybe less. "My fiancé," she whispered, and tears spilled down her cheeks. "In Minnesota. After his mother called me a freak for being so tall. Heinrich said if I was going to be a freak, I should be marked like one. He said no one would ever want me. He said..." Wade didn't let her finish. He bent his head and put his mouth over the snakebite, sucking hard. The venom tasted like copper and poison and death. He spat it into the grass, then sucked again. His lips were already going numb. He'd get some of the poison in his system, that was unavoidable, but better him than her. Better him than watching another woman die while he stood helpless. Clara gasped above him. Her whole body went rigid. Wade held her leg steady with one hand. The other braced against the ground and kept working. Suck, spit, suck, spit. The intimate position wasn't lost on him. His face pressed against her inner thigh, his hands on her bare skin, her dress hiked up past decency. This was their first real touch. Their first moment of intimacy. And it was happening because she was dying and he was trying to save her. "Keep talking to me," Wade commanded between draws. His voice came out muffled. "Clara, stay with me. Tell me about Heinrich." "He was kind at first," she said, her words starting to slur. The venom was reaching her bloodstream despite his efforts. 6 months we courted. He wrote me poetry, brought me flowers. Then his mother met me. She took one look at how tall I was and said I looked like a circus act. Said her son couldn't marry a woman who'd tower over him at their own wedding. Wade sucked harder, fury building in his chest with every word. Heinrich changed after that, Clara continued. Her hand found Wade's shoulder, gripping it like an anchor. He said, if I really loved him, I'd understand why he needed to make sure I remembered my place. The first time he cut me, he said it was just a joke, just a little mark to remind me not to stand up straight around his family. But then it got worse. The burns came later. He'd hold me down and Wade came up for air, spitting venom so hard it hit the rocks 3 feet away. That's enough? Stop talking. Save your strength. You need to know, Clara said. You need to know what you married. I lied in my letters, Wade. I never told you about being tall. Never told you about the scars. I thought maybe out here where nobody knew me, I could just disappear into being normal. Wade looked up at her. Rain was falling harder now, plastering her hair to her face, washing the tears from her cheeks. She looked like a painting, tragic and beautiful and utterly convinced of her own worthlessness. You think being tall makes you a freak, he said. Everyone does. I don't. Wade bent back to the wound, working with renewed intensity. The swelling had stopped growing, he thought, hoped, but she needed more than hope. She needed a doctor, antibiotics, professional care. And they were 3 miles from home with a storm breaking and darkness coming fast. He sucked one more time, then grabbed his bandana and tied it tight above the wound. His lips were completely numb now. His tongue felt thick. But Clara was still breathing, still conscious. That was enough. Can you ride? He asked. I don't know. I can't feel my leg. Then I'm carrying you. Wade stood, lifting her in his arms. She was solid, real, substantial. Not the delicate porcelain doll his first wife had been. He could feel Clara's weight, feel her realness, and something about that steadied him. She wasn't going to slip through his fingers like smoke. She was here, alive, and he could hold her. Wade, Clara said against his chest. I'm too heavy. You can't. Clara Garrison, Wade interrupted, settling her more securely in his arms as he moved toward his horse. In 11 days, you fixed my porch rail I'd been meaning to get to for 2 years. You organized my disaster of a kitchen better than I ever could. You gentle broke that black stallion nobody else could get near. And yesterday morning, I watched you carry 2 feed sacks I have to drag. You want to tell me again how you're too much? She stared at him, shock breaking through the Venom haze. Wade got her onto his horse, mounted behind her, and pulled her back against his chest. His arms came around her waist, holding her steady. She fit against him perfectly. Her head tucked under his chin, her body aligned with his, like they'd been designed to fit together. Hold on to me, he said into her ear. And Clara, when we get home, when you're safe and well, we're going to have a long talk about why you've been sleeping in the spare room, about why I stare at you every morning at breakfast, and about what kind of man puts his hands on a woman and makes her believe she's anything less than extraordinary. Clara's hand came up weakly to grip his arm. You do that? Talk to me? I do more than talk, Wade said, spurring the horse toward home as lightning split the sky. I'd ride to Minnesota and kill Heinrich Baumer with my bare hands if I thought it would heal what he did to you. But it wouldn't. So instead, I'm going to spend every day showing you what you actually are. Not a freak, not too tall, not too much. Just exactly right. Thunder crashed overhead. The rain turned into a downpour, and Wade Garrison held his mail-order bride against his chest, racing against poison and time, and the ghosts of cruelty that had convinced her she was anything less than perfect. Wade kicked the barn door open with his boot, rain streaming off his hat, Clara limp in his arms. The storm had turned vicious in the last mile, wind howling through the canyon, lightning turning the world white and purple. But they'd made it, barely. Clara's breathing had gone shallow, her skin clammy and cold despite the summer heat. The Venom was winning. He laid her on the hay bales near the back wall, where the roof didn't leak, his hands gentle despite the urgency screaming through his veins. Her eyes were closed now. That wasn't good. That was the opposite of good, Clara. He patted her cheek, harder than he wanted to, but soft enough not to hurt. Clara, wake up! Look at me. Her eyelids fluttered. Opened halfway. Wade, I'm here. I've got you. He was already moving, grabbing the medical kit he kept in the tack room, thanking God he'd restocked it last month after a calf got tangled in barbed wire. Whiskey, clean cloths, needle and thread if it came to that. His hands moved on instinct, while his mind raced through everything he knew about snake bites. Keep the wound below the heart. Keep her still. Watch for signs of shock. Pray the venom didn't reach her major organs before her body could fight it off. I can't feel my leg, Clara whispered. Wade, I can't feel anything. That's the venom. It'll pass, he hoped. He didn't actually know. He'd seen men die from timber rattler bites, and he'd seen men survive, and the difference had always seemed like luck more than anything else. But he couldn't tell her that. Couldn't let her see the fear clawing at his throat. He uncorked the whiskey and poured it over the wound. Clara screamed, a raw animal sound that echoed through the barn and made the horses stamp nervously in their stalls. Her back arched off the hay. Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist hard enough to leave marks. "I know," Wade said, holding her down with his other hand on her shoulder. "I know it hurts, but I have to clean it. Infection will kill you just as dead as the venom." Clara bit down on her lip so hard it bled. Tears streamed sideways into her hair, but she nodded. Held still. Let him work. Wade had never been so aware of another person's body in his life. Every inch of her leg was exposed to him now. The smooth skin, the muscles underneath, the way she tensed and trembled. The wound itself was ugly, swollen and purple, the 2 puncture marks weeping clear fluid, mixed with blood. But it was the other leg that kept drawing his attention. Those scars, that word, those burns. "Tell me about Minnesota," he said, as he wrapped clean cloth around her thigh, covering both the snakebite and the scars. He needed to keep her talking, keep her conscious. "Tell me how you ended up answering my advertisement." Clara's laugh came out broken. "You really want to hear this now?" "Yes." She closed her eyes. For a moment, Wade thought she'd passed out. Then she spoke, her voice distant, like she was remembering something from another life. "I saw your advertisement in the newspaper 3 months ago. Seeking a wife for a Wyoming cattle ranch. Must have a strong back and a stronger heart. No delicate flowers need apply. I read it 5 times before I believed it was real." Wade tied off the bandage and moved to check her pulse. Fast but steady. That was something. "Most men," Clara continued, "they want small women. Delicate women. Women who make them feel big and strong and necessary. Your advertisement was different. You wanted someone strong. You wanted a partner, not a decoration." "That's because I need a partner," Wade said. "Ranch this size doesn't run itself. My first wife, Sarah, she tried. God knows she tried. But she wasn't built for this life. The work broke her down long before the cholera finished the job." Clara's eyes opened, focusing on him with sudden clarity. "You loved her." "I did." Wade sat back on his heels, studying his wife's face in the lamplight. "But Sarah and we were never partners. I spent our whole marriage trying to protect her from everything. The hard work, the harsh winters, the reality of frontier life. I built her a cage made of good intentions, and she died in it anyway. Is that why you wanted someone strong?" Clara asked. "So you wouldn't have to protect her?" "No." Wade reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair off her forehead. The gesture felt natural, inevitable, like he'd been doing it for years instead of minutes. "So we could protect each other." Clara stared at him. Something shifted in her expression, surprise maybe, or the beginning of hope. "The scars," Wade said quietly. "I need to understand. Heinrich did this over 6 months?" 9 months total." Clara's voice went flat, emotionless. "The way people talk, when remembering pain, they've learned to lock away. The engagement lasted 6 months. Then I broke it off after the first time he cut me. But he didn't accept that. He showed up at my boarding house, forced his way in. Said if I wasn't going to be his wife, I should at least be marked so every other man would know what I was." Wade's hands clenched into fists. "And nobody stopped him?" "His father owns half of Minneapolis. The constable is his cousin. When I tried to report it, they laughed." Clara's jaw tightened. "They said maybe if I hadn't led Heinrich on, hadn't made promises I didn't intend to keep, he wouldn't have been so upset. They said a woman my size should be grateful any man wanted her at all." The rage that swept through Wade was cold and focused. The kind of rage that didn't explode. It calculated. It planned. It remembered. "So you left," he said. "I ran. Got on a train west with everything I owned in 2 bags. Saw your advertisement in a newspaper someone left on the seat. And I thought," her voice broke, "I thought maybe out here, where nobody knew me, I could be someone different. Someone who wasn't broken. Someone who wasn't marked." Wade looked down at the bandage covering her legs, both of them now, the wounded one and the scarred one, wrapped together in clean white cloth. "You are someone different out here," he said. "You're Clara Garrison, my wife. And nothing that happened in Minnesota changes that. But the scars, tell me what you see when you look at them," Wade interrupted. Clara blinked. "What? The scars? What do you see?" "Proof," she whispered, "that I'm everything they said I was. Freakish, unlovable, too much." Wade shook his head. "That's not what I see. Then what do you see?" He met her eyes, held them. "I see evidence that you survived something that would have destroyed most people. I see proof that you're strong enough to bear cruelty and still get up the next day. I see a woman who got on a train and traveled 1,000 miles to start over, who didn't let hatred make her hateful, who still believes in second chances even after someone tried to convince her she didn't deserve a first one." Clara's breath caught. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but these were different. Not pain. Something else. "I see my wife," Wade continued, his voice roughening. "And Clara, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been a coward these 11 days. I've been so afraid of feeling anything again, so terrified of losing someone else that I've kept you at arm's length. But lying to you seems worse than being afraid. So here's the truth. You walked into my house 11 days ago, and you've been all I can think about since. Wade, the way you hum when you cook breakfast, the way you stand on the porch at sunset like you're drinking in the sky, the way you talk to the horses, gentle, respectful, like they're people who deserve kindness. The way you take up space without apologizing for it, even though I can see you've been taught to make yourself small." He leaned closer. "Clara, you're not too tall. You're not too anything. You're exactly what I needed. I just didn't know it until a snake bit you and I had to put my mouth on your skin to save your life." Clara made a sound between a laugh and a sob. "That's the strangest love confession I've ever heard." Wade froze. "Love confession, isn't it?" She reached up with a shaking hand and touched his face. Her palm was cold, clammy, but her touch was certain. "You just told me I'm all you think about. That I'm exactly what you needed. That sounds like love to me." His throat went tight. "Clara, we've known each other 11 days. My parents knew each other 3 days before they married. They were together 40 years before my mother died." Clara's thumb brushed his cheekbone. "Time doesn't make love real. Seeing someone, truly seeing them, that's what makes it real. And Wade, you see me. Maybe you're the first person who ever has." Wade caught her hand, pressed it harder against his face. "Then let me keep seeing you. Let me—" He stopped, struggling for words that felt too big for his mouth. "I'm not good at this. Sarah used to say I had the emotional range of a fence post. But Clara, I want to try, with you. I want to do this right. What does right look like?" Clara whispered. "It looks like me staying up all night making sure you don't stop breathing. It looks like me learning what you need, instead of assuming I already know. It looks like—" Wade glanced down at the bandage again. "It looks like me understanding that those scars are part of your story, but they're not the whole story. And the rest of that story? I want to be in it." Clara pulled his face down to hers. The kiss was soft, tentative, tasting of salt and rain and whiskey. Her lips were cold. Her hand trembled against his jaw. But when Wade kissed her back, gentle and careful and full of everything he couldn't say out loud, Clara made a small sound of relief, like she'd been holding her breath for 9 months and finally remembered how to exhale. When they pulled apart, her eyes were brighter, more focused. "You're not dying on me," Wade said firmly. "You understand? I just figured out I want you, Clara Garrison. You don't get to leave now." She smiled, weak but real. "I'll try my best." "Good." Wade settled beside her in the hay, pulling her against his chest so he could monitor her breathing, her heartbeat, every sign that she was still fighting. "Now sleep. I've got you. And when you wake up, we're starting this marriage over. The right way." Clara's head fell against his shoulder. Her breathing evened out. And Wade Garrison sat in his barn with his mail-order bride in his arms, listening to rain drum on the roof, watching for any sign her condition was worsening. and making silent promises to a God he'd stopped believing in after Sarah died. If Clara lived through this, if she opened her eyes tomorrow and smiled at him again, he'd spend the rest of his life making sure she never again felt like she was too much. He'd make sure she knew every single day that she was exactly enough, more than enough, everything. Clara's fever broke 3 hours before dawn. Wade felt it happen. The way her skin went from burning to merely warm, the way her breathing deepened and steadied, the way she stopped shaking against his chest. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those scars. That word carved into her flesh. And rage would flood through him so strong, it made his hands shake all over again. By the time weak sunlight filtered through the barn slats, Clara's eyes were open, clear and focused in a way they hadn't been since the snake struck. "You stayed," she whispered. Looking up at him, Wade brushed hair off her forehead, the gesture already becoming habit. "Where else would I be? Most men would have left. Would have seen the scars and decided I wasn't worth the trouble. Then most men are fools." Wade helped her sit up slowly, watching for signs of dizziness or pain. "How do you feel?" "Like I got kicked by a horse and dragged through a cactus patch." Clara touched the bandage on her leg tentatively. "But alive. Wade, you saved my life. You saved mine first," he said quietly. She blinked. "What? 11 days ago you walked into my house and everything changed. I just didn't know how to tell you." Wade stood, offering his hand. "Can you walk? We should get you inside, into a real bed." Clara took his hand and let him pull her up. She wobbled, favoring her good leg, and Wade immediately wrapped his arm around her waist to steady her. She was tall enough that her head reached his chin, not quite eye to eye, but close. Close enough that she didn't have to look up at him like she was small. Close enough that they fit together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting to find each other. They made it to the house slowly, Wade taking most of her weight, Clara's arm draped over his shoulders. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and smelling of sage and wet earth. The sunrise painted the mountains gold and crimson. It was the kind of morning that made you believe in new beginnings. Inside, Wade helped Clara to the main bedroom. Not the spare room she'd been using, but his room, with the big bed and the window facing east toward the sunrise. She didn't protest, just sank onto the mattress with a sigh of relief. "I need to ride to town," Wade said, pulling off his boots. "Get the doctor. Make sure there's no lasting damage from the venom. Wade, it's 18 miles, and you almost died last night." "I'm getting the doctor." He sat on the edge of the bed, his hand finding hers. "But first I need to know something. When you're healed, when you're strong again, what do you want? From this marriage, from me, from this life?" Clara studied their joined hands for a long moment. "I want to stop hiding," she finally said. "I want to stop making myself small. I want to stand up straight and take up space and not apologize for existing." "Good," Wade said. "What else?" "I want—" She looked up at him, vulnerability and hope warring in her expression. "I want what you said last night. Partnership. Protection that goes both ways. Someone who sees me and doesn't flinch." "Done." Wade squeezed her hand. "Anything else?" Clara's cheeks flushed pink. "I want a real marriage, not a business arrangement, not two strangers sharing a house. I want you, Wade Garrison. All of you. The fence post emotions and the protective rage and the way you held me all night like you were afraid I'd disappear if you let go." Wade felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been sealed shut since Sarah died, since he'd learned that loving someone meant losing them. But Clara wasn't Sarah. Clara was strong enough to survive cruelty, brave enough to start over, and real enough that he could hold her without fear she'd shatter. "Then that's what you'll have," he said roughly. He leaned down and kissed her, longer this time, deeper, tasting coffee and rain and the beginning of something that felt like salvation. When he pulled back, Clara was smiling. "But first you're resting." "Doctor's orders, even before the doctor gets here." "Bossy," Clara murmured, but she was already sinking back into the pillows, exhaustion pulling at her. "Get used to it," Wade said. He stood, tucked the blankets around her and headed for the door. "I'll be back by noon with Doc Henderson." "Don't get up. Don't even think about getting up." "Wade?" He turned. "Thank you," Clara said softly, "for sucking out the venom, for not running when you saw the scars, for making me believe that maybe I'm not broken after all." Wade crossed back to the bed, bent down, and kissed her forehead. "You were never broken, Clara. You were just waiting for someone to see you clearly. I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." He made it to town in 2 hours, pushing his horse harder than he should have. Doc Henderson took one look at Wade's face and didn't ask questions, just grabbed his bag and followed. By the time they got back to the ranch, Clara was awake again, sitting up in bed with better color in her cheeks. The doctor examined her thoroughly, asked pointed questions about the timeline and Wade's treatment, and finally pronounced her lucky. "Another 30 minutes and we'd be having a very different conversation," he said bluntly. "You did good, Wade. Saved her life." After the doctor left, Wade made soup. Clara ate slowly, watching him move around the kitchen like she was memorizing him. When she finished, he took the bowl and sat beside her on the bed. "I need to tell you something," Wade said. "While you were sleeping, I wrote a letter to Heinrich Baumer's father in Minneapolis." Clara went still. "Why?" "Because you deserve justice. Because what that man did to you was criminal, and someone needs to know." Wade pulled the sealed envelope from his pocket. "I didn't send it yet. Wanted you to decide. But in it I explained what I saw, what Heinrich did. And I made it very clear that if Heinrich or anyone else from that family ever comes near you again, they'll answer to me." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "You'd do that? Fight for me? Clara, I'd burn down Minneapolis for you." Wade's voice was dead serious. "But I figured a strongly worded letter was a better place to start." She laughed through tears, then sobered. "Send it, please. I need someone to know that what he did was wrong. That I didn't deserve it." "You didn't," Wade said fiercely. "Not for a second. And Clara, however long it takes for you to believe that, months, years, decades, I'll be here reminding you." Over the next 3 weeks, Clara healed. The swelling went down. The wound closed clean. She started walking without a limp, then helping with light chores, then working alongside Wade like she'd been doing it for years. And every night she slept in the main bedroom, in their bed, with Wade's arms around her and the windows open to let in the sound of crickets and wind. They talked, really talked, about Sarah and Heinrich and all the ghosts they'd brought with them to Wyoming. About what they wanted from life and from each other. About the ranch and the future and whether Clara wanted children someday. And slowly, carefully, they built something real, not the fantasy of a mail-order marriage, but the solid foundation of two people who'd seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway. One evening, Wade found Clara on the porch at sunset, standing tall and straight without hunching her shoulders, her face tilted toward the sky. He walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. She leaned back against him, fitting perfectly. "I got a letter today," Wade said quietly. "From Heinrich's father," Clara stiffened. "And Heinrich's in the hospital. Has been for 3 weeks. Someone beat him badly enough to put him in bed for a month." Wade's voice held no sympathy. "His father found your letters. Found evidence of what Heinrich did. He's ashamed, apologetic, says he's sending your mother's jewelry and your things that Heinrich took. Says if he'd known what his son was capable of, he'd have stopped it." Clara was quiet for a long moment. "Then good. I hope Heinrich remembers every time he looks in a mirror. I hope he carries his scars the way I carry mine." Wade turned her around to face him. "Your scars," he said clearly, "are part of what makes you strong. They're proof you survived." "Heinrich's scars? They're just proof that cruelty catches up with you eventually." Clara cupped his face in both hands. "How did I get so lucky? To find you?" "Clara Garrison," Wade said, pulling her closer. "I'm the lucky one. You think I don't know that? You walked into my life and turned everything upside down. Made me feel things I thought I'd buried with Sarah. Made me want to be better, braver. Made me want to deserve you." "You already do," Clara whispered, and kissed him. Later, much later, after they'd gone inside and closed the bedroom door. After Wade had loved his wife the way she deserved to be loved, thoroughly and tenderly and without a trace of shame, Clara traced the line of his jaw in the darkness. "Tell me something," she said. "That first day when you saw me get off the train and I was so much taller than you expected, what did you really think?" Wade smiled in the darkness. "I thought, thank God, finally a woman who won't break." Clara laughed, the sound full and free and beautiful. "And now?" "Now I think I'm the luckiest man in Wyoming territory. Because I asked for a mail-order bride, and I got a partner. A lover, a wife who's strong enough to match me. And Clara?" He pulled her closer, her head settling perfectly into the curve of his shoulder. "I'm never letting you go." "Good," she whispered, "because I'm never leaving." Outside, the prairie stretched endless under a canopy of stars. Inside, two people who'd been broken by loss and cruelty learned what it meant to be whole. The mail-order bride who'd been marked as a freak found a man who saw her as extraordinary. The lonely cowboy who'd locked away his heart found a woman brave enough to help him open it again. And in a small ranch house in Wyoming territory, where sage grew wild and the sky went on forever, they built something neither of them had thought possible, a love that started with poison and ended with healing. A love that proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the most desperate moments. A love that showed both of them that being exactly who you are, scars and all, is not just enough. It's everything. Now let me ask you something, because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're mirrors showing us truths about real life. Have you ever felt like you were too much for someone? Too tall, too loud, too broken, too damaged by your past? Have you ever met someone who saw all your scars, the visible ones and the hidden ones, and chose to stay anyway? Have you ever been brave enough to leave behind people who made you feel small and go searching for somewhere you could finally stand tall? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me about the person who saw you when everyone else looked away. Tell me about the moment you realized you deserve better than what you'd been accepting. And tell me, where are you watching this from right now, and what time is it where you are? Let's build a community of people who understand that our scars don't make us broken. They make us survivors. I'll be reading every single comment.